Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 817. I'm Tom Cagley, your host today. The SPaMCAST 817 features our conversation with Artem Koren, co-founder and chief product officer of Sembly AI. We talked about AI, the role of AI, and the impact of agents on the workplace. Artem grew up in New York City. He graduated from Columbia University with a degree in computer science and later attended the NYU Stern School of Business, where he earned his MBA. Artem is passionate about using AI to enrich humanity and create positive change. He combines his experience as a systems engineer, product manager, management consultant, and entrepreneur to create innovative products, bringing to life new ways that technology can help us reach our goals. Sembly AI, which he co-founded with Gil Makleff in 2019, is at the forefront of augmented worker intelligence, empowering hundreds of organizations around the world with AI agent solutions that bridge the gap between meetings and results. Turn on your agent, and let's talk with Artem Koren. Artem Koren, co-founder and chief product officer of Sembly AI. Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
Great to be here, Tom.
You know, it is fun to talk to people about AI, and I've had a number of folks on the podcast over the 18 years it's run to talk about some form of AI or another. I always like to start with, how do you define AI? Because if I've had 50 people, I have probably 75 different definitions. So, what is AI to you?
So I tend to use AI differently in different contexts. I think more and more today, I use it to specify a kind of technology that is able to interact with people in a naturally human way, which is to say that there's no special procedures, commands, special know-how that you need to interact with the tech, and that makes it AI. Now, that's not a cover-all definition by any stretch, but in my world and kind of bleeding into adjacent territories, that seems to be the one definition that's most generally applicable. That said, of course, depending on how, what context you're in, this can take different flavors.
Okay. Well, and given your definition, how would concepts like machine learning or generative AI, how would they differ in that definition, or are they just a subset?
So now we're going into a little bit of under the covers, under the surface, because there's AI as a concept, but then there is the technology that is invoked to realize AI concepts. And so machine learning is one technology approach. Generative AI is another technology approach, where essentially machine learning is about the technical concept of being able to show a lot of examples to a system and have it learn from those examples and then become smart enough to figure something interesting out about a new sample that you give it that wasn't in the sample set. So that's very broadly machine learning. Whereas generative AI is a system that has already learned a lot of things and then can create novel content based on things that it has learned before.
Many of the listeners and the listeners to the Software Process and Measurement Cast are a fairly eclectic bunch, ranging from people who run major IT shops, at least the ones that have contacted me, down to practitioners who are coders, and both in terms of developing new software and maintaining it. If you were to look at AI as something that's being, a technology that's being produced. How do you see an AI application or an AI tool, the development of that, different than, writing a chunk of code for SAP?
So let's first talk about what it means to be an AI application. More and more, it makes more sense when you're talking about AI technology to think about AI as a kind of a building material. And it's a kind of an interesting building material that has usefulness in when you just sprinkle it into something, or if you kind of build a little part of something using it, or if the whole thing is built using that material. And depending on how much of that material you use, you get very different, let's say, elements. So, for example, there has been sprinkles of AI across a lot of technologies for the past, I don't know, at least 10 years, when it comes to your preferences in certain cases, um, you know, a little bit of kind of predicting your behavior and advertisement. So sprinkles of AI have been used across those kinds of applications. Then you can have a major application. So you mentioned CRM earlier. You can have a big CRM that's generally not an AI app. It's a CRM. It's a classic application CRM. But maybe there's a module in that CRM that relies heavily on AI approaches to do something clever or interesting, like it can notice something about a new content that you've just added, or it can extrapolate something about a conversation or interaction you've had with a contact and suggest some kind of a follow-up, let's say. And then there could be all the way out to 100% pure unadulterated AI, kind of like your 100% Wagyu beef. So that would be like a chat GPT, right? Like it's just all AI. There's very little about it that's not AI. It's really just all AI unto itself. And especially when you kind of drop the interface of ChatGPT and just look at the API of GPT and Anthropic's Claude and Google's Gemini, if you just look at the APIs of that, that's pure. That would be a pure AI technology. And so there's very different kinds of animals when you're talking about AI apps. And to some extent, they're all AI applications. Of course, the more AI you put into it, the more of an AI application it is. And I think the extent to which you use the AI in the application will define kind of what it means for it to be an AI application. So, for example, our application Sembly AI is very AI centric. It really uses AI throughout its flow. And what Sembly does is it joins calls, it hangs out with the team on the call, and then after the call, it's able to generate great meeting notes, the transcript, tasks, issues, risk, decisions. But you can also talk to an AI bot about the meeting. You can send the results of the meeting automatically down to your downstream applications. Throughout that whole process, there are different elements of AI being involved, whether it is about translating your speech into something digital, like and then text, whether it's to figure out who's speaking when, whether it is to actually synthesize and digest the content that was spoken, et cetera, et cetera. So there's different elements of AI being used all throughout. And so Sembly is a very AI-centric application, certainly what we call today an AI tool. And then there's different invocations of AI in a lot of different places. And as I mentioned, ChatGPT is like a completely AI centric technology. It's all AI. And then maybe there's some other tools that try to use AI to improve certain elements, maybe certain elements of the interfacing or certain elements of predicting some kind of behavior. But maybe it's not central to the entire tool itself.
How much of the early or first third of 2024 level of activity in AI is just everybody jumping on the bandwagon and not actually going through something like a decision tree like that? It's like, does it make sense? Does it not make sense? Should I shell it? Should I make this application truly fully AI?
I mean, there's certainly a big bandwagon effect happening for sure. But I would say that when it comes to AI, it's one of those things where it's like discovering fire. Now, you might not know, it's like maybe I haven't used fire before, and I don't exactly know how fire fits in my life, but like it seems like it'd be extremely useful all over the place. And I think that's where we are with AI. And it's one of those interesting moments in our you know uh, timeline as a species, as a society, that we have this thing that's so obviously useful that we don't know exactly how exactly it's useful, but we it's such a strong intuition that this is going to be helpful in some way, shape, or form somewhere. It's and some things are multi-step. Like it's useful. Like let's say I like chess. I like to play chess, and is it useful to have a second queen on the board for you? Like, yes. Like, if you give me an option, like, would you have a second queen? Yeah, I'd love a second queen. Do you know exactly what you're going to do? No, I have no idea how I'm going to use it. Like, am I going to checkmate you? Am I going to prevent the checkmate? Am I going to just take all your pieces? Or am I going to still lose? Like, okay. But like, hopefully, if you're a decent player, an extra queen guarantees you a win. And that would be true for like any, like strong player. And that's the intuition, right? It's like for a strong player, an extra queen means an automatic win, basically. Unless they're in a very very special situation. It makes it. But how exactly will they win? They can't tell you. That's a lot of extra thinking that needs to happen. And I think that's where we are with AI. It's like we have the opportunity to bring an extra queen on the board. Is it useful? Hell yeah, I think we think so. How exactly? We need to think about that a little bit.
Is that why there is some degree of residual fear to this technology?
There are many reasons why there is residual and non-residual fear to this technology. There's a lot about this technology we don't understand, in terms of how it works and how well it does what it does. We don't know how much we can truly rely on it to give us certain quality of results that we expect. And then there is very practical concerns about intellectual property, about fair use, about balanced outcomes, about equity, about biases, and so there's certainly a lot of trust related fear when it comes to this tech, and it's very fair, and it's good in some ways that it's there.
Speaking of trust, um, you know, Sembly's AI teammate and the fact that it, is, an AI that listens in and interprets meetings. How do people react when they first see these kind of tools in a meeting?
So we started doing this in 2019, way before AI was cool. And
Oh, come on.
even
AI has always been cool.
I thought so. I thought so, but not everyone thought so.
Oh,
Today,
okay.
I think almost everyone thinks so. Whether or not they're afraid of it, they probably think it's cool. Um, and so when we were doing this in 2019, this was so new, and this was before COVID. So even the idea, of course, there was remote meetings and online meetings already happening, but it wasn't so pervasive. And then first COVID happened, which means the online meeting paradigm got super normalized. And then slowly AI started to creep in. But before AI became broadly known, we had a real uphill battle as far as people trusting AI presence in the meeting. It was a lot of explanation, a lot of hand waving, a lot of like, no, this is really, really useful. Watch. But certainly there was a lot of resistance. It was just unusual. It was something you've never seen, you've never considered, and people, I think, generally didn't know how to react. And some people became very aware of it, and didn't feel comfortable just having a meeting around it. It was like kind of Big Brother. And now more and more, you start to encounter agents like Sembly in the wild and it's just becoming much more normalized. And now it's not uncommon, or not that uncommon, I should say, for someone to arrive with their AI agent and someone else to arrive with another AI agent. And sometimes we joke in my company that there's more agents than people in the meeting. So today it's there's still, I think, more people that are not aware of it than are, but there's definitely a big chunk of the working population that has experienced it or uses it on a daily basis.
Don't you think it might be a little dangerous if there were more agents than people? Perhaps we could send our agents to the meeting instead of us. All kidding aside, what are the technical and human considerations?
Of course. This is so central to. So there's a new layer of AI driven technology that you can call the agent technology. And so agent technology is, in some sense, like your Alexa on steroids. Whereas Alexa only picks up, when you're in your kitchen and you explicitly talk to it. It's kind of like a very, let's say, extremely limited agent. It only hangs out in one place. It only activates when you talk to it, and partly because of that, it's like not as useful as it could be. Agents are freed, and so agents can hang out with you in your meetings for work. They can hang out with you in your offline conversations. They can participate in your life. So agents is a kind of tech that participates in your life. And more it's becoming very fluid, and certainly that's something we work hard on at Sembly, is that the agent becomes this very natural part of your life. So I don't know if you have a lot of Pokemon fans in your podcast. I'm not sure. I'm not a huge fan, but I know enough about it because I grew up with it. And in Pokemon, you kind of walk around and you have this Pikachu that's sort of like following you along, and it's kind of pretty powerful in certain situations. And that's a good way to think about an agent. Like, just like you would be a fool to walk through a magical forest without Pikachu. All the Pokemon fans are going to kill me. I'm probably saying something wrong, but just like you would be a fool to walk through the magical forest without Pikachu, today, I'm not going to say be a fool, but like it would be very, it would be an unproductive decision not to extend your work life with some agent or multiple agents of some form. And so you asked, do I wrestle with these kind of privacy? Of course, because any kind of technology that shadows you in this kind of way immediately faces three things that must be addressed, at least three things that must be addressed to this effect, which are consent, privacy, and confidentiality. And these are things you have to solve in the agent world. Consent are the people who are exposed to the agent consenting to that exposure. And there's personal implications and as well as legal implications to that. Not everything can be recorded without certain kinds of consent and recorded in certain ways. And so consent is extremely important. And that's something that by itself that has to be solved. The second thing that needs to be solved is privacy. So not everything that was recorded between two people, even in a single organization, can or should be shared beyond that scope. Maybe it should be shared with one other person, but not with three other people, etc. So the idea of even within the context of a single organization is privacy respected of that conversation. That's important. And that also has to be solved. And then finally, confidentiality. Okay, we had this conversation inside my company, and maybe we talked about, like the next secret formula for Coca-Cola. Like, I don't want anyone else to know what that secret formula is going to be. How do I make sure that that information never leaves the confines of my organization? That's also an important thing to resolve. And anyone who is involved in agent or agent-like products has to deeply solve these technical and human requirements and consideration.
How have you been able to create a culture of creativity?
Well, in our organization, I think it's just my style. I think in at Sembly, we're always looking to see what can we do that's really brilliant, that makes the best use of the latest um, possibilities in technology that are available to create value for our customers. And we like that. We love innovation, and innovation brings two things. It creates outsized value for the investment. That's kind of the point of innovation, is to multiply the value. The Like, very, very broadly speaking, innovation is the ability to extract more value out of the same kind of investment, right? So there's like, you can start with a hand axe, but then you can chop this much. With a normal axe, you can chop twice as much. But with a bulldozer, suddenly you can chop so much more, and then et cetera, right? So ultimately, innovation is about that. It's like about getting more value out of the investment and out of the resource investment. And so we love that. We're always scanning the horizon to see how can we affect the customer experience with the latest and greatest that we can bring forth. And I personally am very strong about bringing in concepts as quickly as we can, but in a way that makes sense, so that we can create useful moments of wow, or moments of delight for our customers. And it's often running ahead and then taking a few steps behind, right? Because naturally, innovation can often be very unpredictable, unreliable, and those aren't the kinds of experiences we want to deliver.
Creativity is a positive, obviously, but harnessing that whole idea of creativity and innovation to actually grow Sembly AI, that's a different story. How did you get there?
So I think the way we approach innovation at Sembly is it's triangulated across a few different forces. And very importantly, it's always uh, experience oriented. There's always a vector of a target user experience that we'd like to achieve. It's also important, and actually, and when we pay attention to this, and I've seen that other companies make bad decisions there, is that you don't want to do like new things for the sake of new things. Innovation is not just about like, let's use the newest thing. That's not really the point. The point is that there's an experience that's either impossible to achieve given the existing set of solutions, or is very inefficient to achieve given the existing set of solutions. I'll tell you. So, for instance, one of the core things that we do in our product is we attend online meetings. So we attend Google Meet, we attend Microsoft Teams, we attend Zoom, and we're working on adding WebEx to that mix. And so each of these platforms has a wildly different way that they handle an agent attendee. And ultimately, we're an attendee in your meeting. We join the meeting just like a human does. And some platforms have an API for that, some do not. Some have a pretty robust API experience, some do not. And in certain cases, it's important for us to understand, for example, who is speaking when. And in some cases, the platform just tells us, like, this is who's speaking. In some cases, the platform tells us, but it's inaccurate. And then when you try to correlate that with the actual speech, you get mumbo jumbo. And in some cases, the platform doesn't say anything at all, and it leaves it up to you to somehow figure out. And so in some situations, we just use very classical software development to grab the API details and just coalesce it together. In some cases, because we know the source is not a good source, we have to kind of use additional sources of information and then correlate them and then figure out who said what that way. But let's say in the case when we're not presented any kind of information, we have to use AI to read the screen and visually, just like you and I here today, we have to visually read and see that it's Artem who's talking. Literally that. And we use AI for that. So this idea of innovation, I think this is actually a pretty nice example that shows you like there's just a certain circumstance where you're trying to achieve a certain experience, which in our case is we want to know exactly who's speaking when, like what's the name of the person who's talking. And in some situations, there's no way to do it without stepping beyond and doing something really cool and interesting with AI, obviously with certain accuracy and performance and compute requirements.
If you woke up tomorrow morning, somebody handed you a cup of coffee or your caffeinated beverage of choice and a magic wand with any two wishes impacting how AIs were used in business, what would they be and why?
So it's a broad question, right? Magic wand gives you a lot of possibility. Um, I would say that first of all, if I had a magic wand, I would put Sembly into every organization out there, not because I'm greedy, uh, which I might be, but because I really, really believe that the value of bringing Sembly or another agent into an organization is insanely huge. And it's hard to know how valuable it is until you've had it around with you. And it's an appendage that you kind of learn to use over time, that after you've learned to use it, you can't live without. I use Sembly personally for my company interactions, meetings, etc., all the time. And every time it's a new kind of a use case that I've never thought before, I just happen to use it for that because I know that I have it. Whether it be like, a customer provided as some kind of a feedback, and like I needed to just share it with someone else in the team, and they could like in 5 minutes exactly know what that feedback was. Or if it's like, managing my to-dos and not forgetting to do something. But it's hard to really quantify all of those use cases because one, they're entirely fit to my work style and my flow of meeting types. And two, um, they expand as the more you use the product. And so my first magic wand is I would just put it in everyone's hands and say, here, like hang out with your AI teammate for the next few months, and then see what are the amazing things you realize you can now figure out and do. That you have this new power in front of you. It just simplifies so many manual activities in your life. It helps you to quickly get answers to questions you never thought you could get answers to. It helps you to be more accurate in your decision making. So much there going on, and you only get to figure that out once you have that appendage. So that's the first thing I would do. Put it in everyone's hand. The second thing I would do is I would make a GPU-based compute and related APIs free, so that we can enjoy the power of this technology at the minimal cost. Of course, I'm being facetious; it cannot be free, but the ultimately the barrier to the value that this technology provide is what it costs to compute and deliver it. And today, the really powerful large language models are still quite expensive. I think the trajectory is in the right direction, and it's reducing. But certainly that will ultimately be the decider for how expensive that is, because advanced applications like Sembly, they're not prompt answer based. It's not like we have a prompt, we send the prompt, we get an answer, and we're done. These could be very very large contexts of content that we need to push to the LLM to understand, and then we may need to do it many times. So may need to do many passes. We may need to go back and forth multiple times. So it really becomes a heavy compute burden to just get to one result for one instance for one meeting that we're trying to achieve. And so for us, the cost of compute, and for everyone really who's building AI applications today, the cost of advanced GPU compute is very important. But I think it's very early days in this world, and in terms of GPU compute for AI, and I think over the next 5-10 years, it's probably going to be reduced by many factors.
This conversation was absolutely marvelous. How can people continue that conversation with you? How can they find out more about Sembly AI?
We have amazing free trials, so no spend required to bring an agent into your life. It's www.sembly.ai, sembly.ai. Go to the website, pick a plan that looks right for you. If you're an individual, I recommend either the professional or the team plan, or if you're in a small team, I would say go right to the team plan, and give it a whirl. Hang out with it for at least a week, bring it into your meetings, see how it works for you. I think once you start to use it, it will be hard to let it go. If you want to get in touch with me directly, either for partnership or for any other questions, you can find me on LinkedIn as Artem Koren, Koren.
At this point, I think, as you know, we open up the platform for you to promote anything that you'd like. The platform is yours.
I would say that, first of all, we recently had a big release. This was in March, where we introduced the most robust automations in our space. And so all those transcripts, meeting notes, tasks, etc., you can now automatically drop into your favorite CRM, your favorite task management system, your to-do app, your work management, your knowledge management. It can stream directly. So imagine if you're a salesperson, all your calls with your customers can already be enhanced with all the meeting notes from those customers, and right in your CRM. There's no coding necessary. It's all point and click. It's beautiful. It's easy, and we're getting a lot of rave reviews on that. So that's fun and exciting. But we're going to be delivering some really special things come May and then later in the summer. Two really, really big, highly innovative features. I can't say too much about it yet, but I would say that, what's coming in May is going to be something that no other product has, that especially if you're managing multiple projects or workflows, you have a lot of streams of activity in your life. You have to see this. You have to see that. You won't believe it when you see it, but when you see it, you won't stop. Your jaw will drop once you pick it up. You just will never stop using the product. And then in the summer, something really, really special, but we'll stay tuned for that.
Thank you again for spending time with the Software Process and Measurement Cast listeners. I'm sure they really enjoyed it.
Tom, thank you for having me.
Work Intake Summer Camp is in session. Jeremy Willits and I are celebrating this summer in the Northern Hemisphere with a summer camp. We'll look at the primary causes of work intake problems and how to solve them. Join us for an entertaining and informative LinkedIn Live event. The next session begins at 11:30 Eastern Daylight Time on July 3rd. Links in the show notes to set a reminder or register. Each session will define one work intake problem, identify how to recognize the problem, offer a pragmatic approach to solving or tackling that issue, and at least one scary story of work entry gone wrong. This is summer camp, of course. Links in the show notes. Be there. Also, links for the first two sessions if you want to take a look before you commit to actually being there. In Reread Saturday News, Chapter 5 of Csikszentmihalyi's Flow is titled The Body in Flow. This chapter deals with the kinesthetic contribution to optimal experiences in flow. The word contribute is an important descriptor. The author warns the reader, the body does not produce flow merely by its movements. The mind is always involved as well. We discuss. Links in the show notes to this week's and all previous weeks' installments of Reread Saturday on the Flow. On the next Software Process and Measurement Cast, more of the story of Innovatech and what happens when responsibility and accountability get muddled. We'll also have a visit from Case Kustecki, who brings her You're Not Alone column to the podcast. If process improvement is a never-ending journey, why do so many people ask, are we there yet?